Welcome to my presentation of the SGR formula can be a Medicare killer. Why am I doing this? I'm doing it because, like you, I have a vested interest in Medicare and I see a big cut coming. Let me tell you something personal about me. Sometimes I forget what I want to say, so I have it all written down, and you will see what I'm saying as I say it. You might call it a read-along. Okay, fasten your seat belts and we're ready to start. This presentation addresses the SGR formula, what it is, what it's supposed to do, what it does, and why it can be a Medicare killer. In the process, I'll talk about the Balanced Budget Act of 1997, some Medicare basics, some food for thought, what we can do to fix the SGR problem, and why I know the fix will work. And I'll be using a little history. Medicare has many parts, so this discussion centers on Medicare Part B and how Medicare Part B can be affected by the SGR formula. If you don't already know, then you're asking, what is the SGR formula and how does it affect Medicare? Well, Congress has always struggled with the problem of how Medicare doctors should be reimbursed for their services. So, with the Balanced Budget Act of 1997, the Congress enacted a law commonly referred to as the Sustainable Growth Rate Formula, which was designed to reimburse Medicare doctors for their services. So now you know what SGR stands for, Sustainable Growth Rate. Now this is maybe a little bit of a joke here. This is what the SGR formula looks like. The input is the economy, which is in not very good shape right now. And the output is cuts to Medicare. And this fellow says this is not funny. Or this is funny, I beg your pardon. Now this is the designer of the SGR formula, and they only let him out at night. The SGR formula was supposed to increase payments to doctors based on the growth in the overall economy. This formula worked fine for everyone as long as the economy was expanding. It worked for the doctors and it worked for the patients. However, when we had a recession in 2001, the formula required a cut in payments to doctors instead of an increase. And this is where the SGR formula started to kill Medicare. And this is definitely not good. Let's take a look at the SGR formula history. We have the years 2002 through 2010 and the cuts that were called for by the SGR and the congressional action. In 2002, a 5.4% was called for. The Congress took no action, and the doctors were cut by 5.4%. In 2003, another cut was called for, but this time the doctors stopped the cut and increased it by 1.6%. And you can see for 2004 and 2005, they did the same thing. They stopped the cuts and increased it by a little. In 2006, further cuts were called for, and 2007, and they froze the cuts at the 2005 level. Now you can see in 2008, 9, and 10, big chunks were called for, 10.1%, 15%, 21.1%. Each time they stopped the cuts and they increased it by just a little bit. Now maybe this chart will make a little more sense. The blue lines represent the cuts. The red lines represent what Congress did. Notice the zero line here. This is where we're going to start. So first of all, there was a cut, and the Congress allowed it to happen. Then there was another cut called for. The Congress increased it by a little bit. Another cut, another increase. 2005, remember, the cuts in 2006 rather than 2007 were held at the 2005 level. 2008 another cut was called for, and they increased it a little bit. So we're getting closer to the zero line. In 2009, another cut was called for, and we finally broke above the line where we started. 2010, another cut was called for, and they increased it a little. Now, in 2011, we don't know what's going to happen. We know that a 29% cut is called for. Now, will they act again and stop the cut, or will they let it happen? Now, Public Law 105-33 covers this, and the folks that dole out the money will make this cut if the Congress doesn't act to stop it. Since 2003, Congress has overridden the formula cuts to increase or freeze the payments. Now, the Congress has always stepped in at the 11th hour to stop the cuts. However, they have not changed the SGR law that calls for the cuts. That's Public Law 105-33. So year after year, the doctors that treat us under Medicare are kept in the dark. And so are we, and this is a big problem. So you ask, what is being done in Washington to stop the cuts to Medicare? This is what I can gather from all that I have found. MedPAC is calling the shots. MedPAC, the Medicare Payment Advisory Commission, established by the Balanced Budget Act of 1997, is a government-appointed commission that advises Congress on what they should do about Medicare payments and other issues affecting Medicare. In general, the current MedPAC plan would freeze primary care physicians' payments over 10 years. They would cut specialties by 5.9% for 3 straight years and then freeze the growth for 7 years following. This is met with strong opposition from the medical community and other agencies. And the little doctor here says, "Are you kidding me?" So what's next? Starting 1 January 2012, the projected cuts in payments to Medicare doctors will be 29%. It's a law. It's Public Law 105-33. Now let us take a look at some Medicare basics in a hypothetical case. For a given doctor visit, the doctor bills Medicare $165. Medicare says we will only pay you $100 for that procedure or visit. Medicare Part B pays 80% of that $100, as we know. Then you or your Medicare supplement pays the other 20%. Let us revisit that $100 again. Subtract the 1 January 2012 29% cut from that $100 visit or procedure that your doctor has been providing, and he/she will now get $71. Your doctor will have to take a big cut for the same visit or procedure. Many will say, what's the big deal? Doctors get paid too much anyway. Well, that's not the point of this discussion. The point of this discussion is, can your doctor tolerate that cut and continue to provide the same level of care for you? Can your doctor tolerate that cut and continue to treat Medicare patients? If your doctor can tolerate this 29% cut, then I have wasted your time. However, if your doctor cannot tolerate the cuts, then where does that leave you? If your doctor quits taking Medicare patients because of the cuts, where does that leave you? Let's stop and think about this. Even though you may not be able to find a doctor that accepts Medicare because of the 29% cut, you will still be paying for Medicare Part B. It's being deducted from your Social Security each month. If you cannot get what you're paying for, will you continue to pay for your Medicare Part B? If you cannot get what you're paying for, will you continue to pay for your Medicare supplement? Okay, now that I have said all of that, what can I do? Not much. What can you or you do? Not much. It's not what you or I can do. It's what we can do. It's what we can do. We can contact our representatives. And in my case, that would be Senator Cochran, Senator Wicker, and Congressman Palazzo. We can send a message like this message. Doesn't necessarily have to be this message, but it could be one like this. Take those actions that are necessary to stop the 29% cut in payments to Medicare doctors scheduled for 1 January 2012. Now, I could have stopped there, but I thought it necessary to add this. If payments to Medicare doctors are cut by 29%, then it will be very difficult, if not impossible, to find a doctor that will accept Medicare patients, and you will have deprived senior citizens of the only medical care insurance they have. Now, I'm asking you to join me, and keep in mind that I gave this presentation to a live audience, and this is what I told them. I'm now asking you to join me in contacting our representatives, and to make this contact process easier, I have prepared 3 addressed postcards for you, one for each of your 3 representatives. Each postcard requires your name, address, and a postage stamp on the front. This message is printed on the back. Excuse me. This is the front of the card. This is the back of the card. Before you ask me this standard question, what good is all of this lobbying of the Congress going to do? Let me give you a good example of what grassroots lobbying did for the military retiree community. This is where I get on my soapbox. It has always been preached that the United States has the most comprehensive system of assistance for veterans of any nation in the world. Then, going back as far as World War II, it was preached that if one served for 20 or more years in the military and retired, they would receive free medical care for themselves and their eligible dependents at military treatment facilities for as long as they and their eligible dependents lived. So you should be able to understand the great disappointment of the military retirees that served the United States of America for 20 or more years when they became aware in December of 1995, when TRICARE Prime came to military bases, that military retirees over age 65 were not eligible to enroll in TRICARE Prime, had to leave their military treatment facilities, go on Medicare, pay for Medicare Part B and a Medicare supplement, just like a person that never served a day in the military. In 1995, the long years of promises of free medical care for serving 20 or more years in the military that were made by the United States military in good faith and relied upon were broken. As a result of this broken medical care promise, in 1996, a lawsuit was filed in federal court in Pensacola, Florida by Attorney Colonel retired George E. Day, on behalf of Robert Rinley and William Chisholm, contending that the government reneged on this promise to provide free medical care to military retirees. Both of these gentlemen are now deceased. Robert Rinley, shown here, is deceased. William Chisholm, that I could never find a picture of, is also deceased. In 1998, I was invited to attend a meeting organized by Colonel Day in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, to explore the possibility of achieving a greater sense of unity among the military retirees and to discuss ideas for applying pressure on Congress and for gaining national media attention. It was at this meeting that I met and started a working relationship with Master Sergeant retired Jim Whittington. For the record, I am now telling you that there is no other single person that made a greater contribution to the grassroots lobbying effort than did Jim Whittington of Laurel, Mississippi. And there's Jim. In 1999, I assisted Jim Whittington in the organization of a military retiree summit meeting in Laurel, Mississippi. At this meeting, we got attendee Congressman Ronnie Shows to agree to introduce a bill to help military retirees regain the medical care we had lost. Congressman Shows followed through and introduced a bill titled Keep Our Promises to America's Military Retirees Act. The Keep Our Promises to America's Military Retirees Act, along with the Colonel Day lawsuit, ignited a military retiree grassroots lobbying effort that lasted for about 6 years. Highlights of that effort follows. It should be noted that what I will describe is just a small part of the overall nationwide effort involving thousands of other military retirees and hundreds of other organized efforts. These are just a few of the military organizations that were involved. We lobbied the Congress like they had never been lobbied before. We made telephone calls, and we sent them letters, and we sent faxes, we sent them email, and we went face to face. Just a brief summary of the lawsuit that was filed. It was filed in Pensacola, Florida. A federal judge found against the military retirees. Colonel Day appealed the case to a higher court. An appeals court three-judge panel finds 3-0 for the military retirees. The government appealed the case to a higher court, and the appeals court 13-judge panel finds 9-4 against the military retirees. Colonel Day appealed the case to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court upheld the appeals court decision. We put up billboards, and the billboard project was supported by military retiree contributions. The project manager was Jack Hollingsworth, United States Navy retired, from Duncan, Oklahoma. This is one of the billboards that was put up just east of Ocean Springs, Mississippi. These billboards were put up all over the country. They had pickets. We had pickets in Washington in the snow. We had pickets in Washington when it wasn't snowing. And most of all, at least what is most important to me, but closer to home, on 6 July 2000, we had a picket in Gulfport, Mississippi that attracted about 500 people during the course of the day, and it also attracted the Sun Herald and the Channel 13 news with a remote unit. But most important, it got the attention of Senator Trent Lott, who was the Senate Majority Leader at the time. We picketed his office. The picket was organized by Jim Ayers, deceased, from Lumberton, Mississippi. It should be noted that the debate that led to TRICARE for Life was in progress as this picket happened. We also had a thing we called the Brown Bag Project, and I've got a great description here of it, but basically what we did was we tore out a piece of paper out of a brown paper sack and unceremoniously wrote something on it with crayon or whatever else we could find, and we sent it to the Congress. And the lady volunteers from the Bob Hope Village in Shalimar, Florida, helped in this project. These are examples of some of the letters that people wrote that they were ready to send to the Congress that they shared with me. There's a bunch of letters by Tom Hawkins, and some more letters by Bob Sorson. This is 100 bound bag letters ready to be sent to the Congress by Jean D. Beard. Jean D. Beard is a military retiree widow. If you want to get a feel for the intensity of a grassroots effort, then you only need to think about how much time, effort, money, and dedication went into the creation of that pile of letters. We owe a lot to people like Jean D. Beard. In spite of all this effort, we didn't get what we promised, but we did get an entitlement called TRICARE for Life. We fought the fight from July 1996, all during the Colonel Day lawsuit, until 2003 when the Supreme Court upheld a lower court decision that found against the military retirees. Now these are my beliefs. If you don't tell the Congress otherwise, they will think everything is okay. I also believe that we have a duty and an obligation to tell our representatives what we think, otherwise they will think everything is okay. Hang on, we're coming in for a landing. Let me tell you this. We didn't get TRICARE for Life because Congress woke up in a good mood one morning and gave it to us. We got it because we worked for it. I'd like to repeat that. We got it because we worked for it. We must fight with the same enthusiasm now as we did then, else we will lose our Medicare. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you for watching.